That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Let's talk about Zorro Mantanzas. So this is another Zorro thing written by Don McGregor, and Don McGregor writes a really, really good Zorro. Um, and I can't tell you how much I dig Don McGregor's Zorro. This, unfortunately, it's not bad. I don't want to give that impression. I have no idea what the hell's going on here. Um, I've read over the back. I haven't had the chance to do much online research on it, but this is just weird to read on its own, and it doesn't have like volume 1 of anything on the side. It feels like I'm reading a story arc from the middle of a run. This comes completely out of nowhere. It is. It feels like I just don't know what the context was for this. And I flipped through it, and like it says it was published in 2010, but as I flip through and I look at the covers by Mike Mayhew, which are really, really stunning, beautiful, beautiful cover work Mayhew did here. Um, you can see dates put on some of the cover work that say stuff like 99, which makes me think, obviously 1999. And if that's the case, I wonder if this was like part of a comics run Don McGregor was writing in the 90s, but then sales dropped off and they never got to finish a story arc that they really wanted to do, or something. I don't honestly know what the context for this is that makes it make any sense. But like we have Zorro dealing with a villain that he's met before, and we are left with a conclusion, and we don't know where it goes. And as far as I know, at the time of this reading, there's nothing before or after this by Don McGregor in a particular Zorro run. And so I'm just lost. That being said, this has all the trademarks of Don McGregor Zorro that I really like. Um, it does a lot of really cool stuff that I thought was really neat. I love the way this opens as you get just like a cool layout and look at the fox's den. So you got the bottom of this cave that where they keep Tornado stabled, and then you've got one layer of it where they've set up a laboratory for Diego, and then you've got the topmost layer of it where he's got a changing room for all his Zorro outfits and for his, Don Diego gear and stuff like that. And then they show you how the Fox's Den is connected to the De La Vega Hacienda. I think that's really cool. It's like when you get like those Secret Origin comics and stuff where you get a tour of the Bat Cave or whatever. That's neat. And we even get a quick reference to Batman here in the den scene that I thought was really cool. In this top panel, Zorro's dodging a bat. I thought that was a pretty neat touch. So it's got that, and it has the feel of the characters. They go for a very Disney inspired look and characterization here. Let me see if I can find the panels. Here, look at this image of Zorro and Bernardo that looks straight out of the Guy Williams show. So that's cool. That's fun. Mike Mayhew does some absolutely breathtaking art. I love that image of Zorro. That is iconic right there. Wow, that looks good. Just beautiful painting. Anyway, so the story for this one is that this villain who has situated himself in control in a position of power over Los Angeles has invited or has been invited by Don Alejandro Diego's father to a Mantanzas, which is the wrestling, the slaughter, the process of, slaughtering cattle, and it's like kind of an event thing that they do. And he's been invited to try to, help solidify relationships and stuff. But he's got a plan that he's going to rile up one of the bulls, get it to start attacking someone, and then he's going to stop the bull. And the villain wants to do this to endear himself to these rich, influential people of Los Angeles. But that plan goes wrong. And even though Zorro is there watching things, he's distracted at the time and not able to stop it because a grizzly bear has smelled the blood from the slaughter and has come down the hill and run into Zorro and Bernardo. And it's just really cool. It's a surprising situation, and it's a shocking situation to put Zorro in. So it allows the villain time to enact his plan while Zorro's dealing with this. And in the enacting of his plan, he gets a bull riled up and bucking, and Alejandro de la Vega pays the price and gets gutted. And that's brutal as shit. And so what I like about this is very much in the sense of how Don McGregor writes Zorro. Don McGregor is very aware that Zorro is taking place in a historical period, and so he writes things as if he writes things that just you had to deal with at different periods in history, and this period in particular. So like when I was reviewing his Paper Cut series, he writes the Great American West, and he puts Zorro in it, and that's really cool. When I was reviewing the Zorro Dailies, which is an old episode of Trade Talk, you can go check that out. When I was reviewing Zorro the Dailies, he puts Zorro in relation to the California tar pits, which did exist. Obviously, they're tar pits. They've been around for centuries. He writes a whole plot that the impetus begins with the tar pits, and that's really cool. It's really neat. It's effective writing, and it makes Zorro being stuck in this period of time, since we've, for whatever reason, never brought him forward more into the modern day. It just makes it more enjoyable to read. It makes it feel fresh when you do things that are actual historically relevant. So having a bull stampede, having a grizzly attack, and having a stampede ensue are all actually, thrilling Western style drama set pieces that feel uniquely Zorro, since we don't do a lot of Western comics anymore. And this book is pretty fucking brutal. So, animal lovers beware. And it just, I don't know, it feels pretty cool to see this kind of stuff done with Zorro, though. So anyway, Zorro's obviously very pissed, and he goes to confront the guy while his father is bleeding to death on the ground, and all the noblemen only see Zorro confronting the guy who just saved Alejandro de la Vega. So they're like, oh, maybe this Zorro guy is evil. Maybe we've been wrong about him all along. And so the villain's just kind of soaking this up, loving it, and he knows Zorro's in a shitty place, but he doesn't know who Zorro is, so he doesn't realize how pissed he is about Alejandro being, caught in the middle of all this. So they fight. There's, again, I mentioned there's a stampede, and that creates a natural sense of drama. And a threat, obviously. And then Zorro has to deal with that and try to get his father out of there, and we're left with Alejandro de la Vega hanging on to life by a thread, and Diego having to figure out what to do, since he can't be angry at the man who everyone saw save his father's life, but who he knows is the one that put his father's life at risk. So it leaves it in an interesting place, and I don't feel like I'm missing a ton of context for this villain. What the hell do I read after this? This is such an oddly like timed thing. I thought this was like a one-off story, and I'm not happy that it doesn't seem to have a continuation point. That happens with a lot of Zorro. I talked about that with the Paper Cuts volumes. There was a fourth volume called Flights that had to do with hot air balloons, written by Don McGregor, and I was like really excited to read that. That sounds really cool and a unique situation, but Zorro, and it's not published anymore. It's not in print. You can't find that volume. This happens a lot with Zorro, and it's incredibly frustrating and disappointing. Like Matt Wagner's run on Zorro, I really, really like, but it just ends. It doesn't have a chance to conclude. It does it twice. It ends flat out twice, which is disappointing. So I feel like the lesson here is if you're writing Zorro, you can certainly feel free to seed a run, seed ideas to pick up on later, but you shouldn't depend on those ideas. You shouldn't depend on getting more than the issues you're being paid for, contracted for, because there's no guarantee you'll ever get to finish that story, and that's disappointing. But it would be good advice for Zorro writers out there if you're listening. Anyway, that'll do it for Trade Talk. That'll do it for comic reviews, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Jake Carlson is asking in the comments something, so I'm going to do just a couple minutes of live commentary. So another reason to show up live if you're watching this after the fact. Every Wednesday night, live. But for now, that'll be it for Trade Talk, so bye.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Let's go ahead and go on to Zorro Mantanzas. Matanzas? Let's figure out how to pronounce that so I don't sound like a fucking idiot throughout the entire review. How is that? Oh, God, I always forget about this. Okay, just give me 1 second, folks. I need to be able to look this up and see how it's pronounced. Mantanzas. 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 Okay. Now that I'm not going to sound like an idiot through the whole review,